Enjoy your lunch. We're going to be your entertainment while you eat here today. So thank you, Vicki, for that introduction. And as I mentioned last night, for those of you who are here, I've never been more excited to be part of Opportunity International and the direction that we're going. We're at a significant juncture and focusing on the big opportunity that will take the organization to a whole new level by revitalizing the organization, expanding our reach to more people in need all around the world. Technology and social impact funding are changing the landscape of the microfinance sector. And we're leveraging our expertise to build new, highly effective models to create more jobs, improve more lives than in the past. In the past, we focused on empowering all types of community entrepreneurs and launched and expand small businesses. But we know that the causes and the solutions to poverty today are multidimensional. So we're focusing on critical areas where we can make the largest impact on lives, including education, agriculture, and health. We're stepping up and trying to innovate new ideas and approaches which you've heard about today in the breakout sessions. All of that takes leadership. None of this thing works without informed and capable leadership. And fortunately, we have Vicki. And that brings us to our next guest. Doug Conant, good friend, has more than 35 years of leadership experience at world-class global companies and is a New York Times bestseller author of Touching Points, Creating Powerful Leadership Connections in the Smallest of Moments. From 2001 to 2011, he served as CEO and president of the Campbell Soup company, where he increased sales, boosted employee engagement, and transformed the company into a leader in social responsibility and ethical leadership. In 2011, he founded Conant Leadership, a growing community of people dedicated to improving the quality of leadership in the 21st century. He also serves as chairman of the Kellogg Executive Leadership Institute at Northwestern University and is currently chairman of Avon Products. So please welcome Doug to the stage. So Doug and I also serve on a board of an organization called the Center of Higher Ambition Leadership, which is all about teaching CEOs and corporations how to operate with a higher purpose, a higher calling, help them find their noble cause. And Doug and I are two of the founding members on that board, and Doug does his work like he does at Kellogg. He teaches a course to high potential folks that CEOs send, and I can tell you right now, the CEOs rave, and so do the attendees, about Doug and the leadership course he puts on. So Doug, did you have a tough commute from your house this morning?
Yeah, it was a long 6-block walk. I was telling Dick, it's the first time I've been able to walk to work in quite a while, and it was great. I even stopped and got a haircut along the way. Do you like it?
There you go. There you go. Okay, well then now you're ready for us. You look good.
I'm ready.
You know, you're ready. All right. Well, here we go. So Doug, as a business leader and CEO, you consistently work to deliver high-performance results while taking your companies beyond the short-term shareholder value, which we all get trapped in, to achieve the so-called higher ambition goals and to build a better world. Why is that important to you?
Well, what I have found is it's important to everyone. You know, if you go all the way back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which really is the foundation for thinking about employee engagement, at the tip of the pyramid is self-actualization. And Stephen Covey used to call that the notion of leaving a legacy of contribution that transcends the ordinary. Why am I here? Why am I doing all this? And what I found is it's important to me, but it was very important to all of our employees. We were an incidental leader in corporate social responsibility. We had always had good practices at Campbell. We worked with fifth-generation family farms, and it was powerful and meaningful work. But when we became more intentional with it, our employees just rallied. And we would publish 2 reports. After we published our first corporate social responsibility report, we'd publish 2 reports on our portal. One was our annual report, and one was our CSR report. Which one do you think the employees opened and passed around? It wasn't the annual report. To a person, they were sending it to their mother, their father, their siblings, saying, here's what my company's doing. And interestingly, the more we leaned into CSR, the more you leaned into community service at United Stationers, the more engaged they became in the work of the enterprise, and the better the enterprise did. I mean, this is a win-win-win all the way around. And it just takes persistent and inspired leadership, the kind of leadership that you brought to United Stationers, that Vicki brings to whatever she does. And, but, you know, I have found organizations and people will take to this like a duck to water if you create it in an approachable, manageable way.
Yeah, I always used to say the luckiest people are those who can find meaning in their everyday work. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's what Doug's talking about. Mm-hmm. So, as you know, Opportunity International is taking a leadership role in its sector. And as leaders, that brings new challenges. Mm-hmm. So what are the leadership challenges that you see in the 21st century, here and now? And are there any differences between leaders running a nonprofit organization and a for-profit organization?
Well, what I'm going to share with you all today is my seat-of-the-pants experience. I'm a student of this territory, but I'll just share with you my perspective. First of all, the technology, the evolution of technology that Vicki just talked about, that you've touched on, is affecting all of the knowledge workers here in the United States, all of the knowledge workers working for Opportunity International. When I go and talk to a group, we say, well, how many emails did you get today? Oh, depending on the size of the organization, 50, 100, 200. And then, well, do you get text messages? Oh, sure. When I don't respond to the email, they send me a text message. And then, oh, well, yeah, I get about 20 of those text messages. And then, by the way, that's the only way my kids will talk to me is if I'm texting. Okay, well, do you have phone calls? Oh, yeah, we talk on the phone all the time. It's the only way for us to stay connected, even though we're across multiple time zones. And then you say, well, do you actually go to meetings too and meet with real people? Oh, yeah, we do that all the time. And so organizationally and personally, people are feeling as if they're getting a sip of water from the fire hydrant of life. It is washing over them. And that affects individuals, you and me. I mean, just keeping up with my email every day when I'm traveling. It's crazy. And what's the first inclination is I want to push all this away. I just want to shut it down for a day, and then I'll start it tomorrow. What happens? The next day, I've got 400 emails and 40 text messages. And so what we're finding is individuals, but also communities of individuals, e.g. enterprises, for-profit or not-for-profit, are all feeling swamped and looking for a more effective and efficient way to operate. That creates incredible stress. It also creates, unfortunately, this expectation that we can do more with less because we're smarter now. And it creates this high-risk environment for employees where they want to perform, but they're fearful that they can't perform to the level expected. And we see that in for-profit and not-for-profit. Fortunately, in not-for-profit organizations, this sense of higher ambition is so palpable that it helps lift the organization maybe a notch higher. But I would tell you, all these organizations, whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, or the government, they feel a higher calling. They do. And they are competing with people that are as well-resourced as they are, and they're all expected to do more with less. So what I've discovered is, as you know, heavy nonprofit work, it's hard for all of us. I mean, this is the challenge of the 21st century. There is no confidence in institutions, large institutions. And then when institutions try and help small individuals, that's a big challenge. I'm chairman of Avon. We empower 6 million women a day in over 100 countries that are making a living based on community-based selling. And that's noble work. And we do it, and we're all in. But that is a big job. And you all are trying to do it with a volunteer organization and with extraordinary reach and extraordinary challenges in some of these countries. I have a lot of admiration for the work that's going on here.
So, I mean, the answer isn't just to work 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Isn't that the way you get on top of all that?
Well, and this is where leadership comes in, and this is where you ought to hold Vicki accountable.
She's already at the 7 days a week.
Well, no. What happens in this environment is we lose track of what matters most.
Exactly.
Stephen Covey had a great line. He used to say, Doug, what matters most must never be at the mercy of what matters least. What matters most must never be at the mercy of what matters least. And today, we get these long lists of things we got to do, and where do we go? We go to the things that we can check off, and we tend to avoid working on the things that matter most. I think the challenge for leadership today is to have a steady hand, have a thoughtful plan, and know what matters most, and help the organization stay aligned with that sense, day in, day out, 24/7. Otherwise, the organization will tend to drift into what matters least to get through the day.
Exactly. So the answer isn't having a policy saying you're going to answer every one of your 200 emails every day before you go to bed. That doesn't get you there, huh?
It doesn't, but you know what's funny? A friend of mine, Bob McDonald, who used to be the chairman CEO of P&G, he did that. Mm-hmm. He was insane.
Yeah.
And now he's running the VA. I think he learned his lesson at Procter & Gamble. The VA is even bigger.
Yeah. There's no way he can answer all those emails.
No.
Yeah.
And there's no way I think he wants to either.
I think the solution is probably have your own server and your own email account and have it go over to.
Yeah. Well, we know who we could talk to about
Well, we do.
that.
We know somebody who knows how to do that. Okay. So how should leaders approach these challenges you're talking about? In particular, highlight the importance of trust in today's leadership equation.
Well, I think it's the foundational notion upon which all else follows. Stephen M.R. Covey, Stephen Covey's son, wrote a wonderful book about 9 years ago called The Speed of Trust. Mm-hmm. And the subtitle to the book was, Trust is the one thing that changes everything. If you have a high-trust team, a high-trust culture, it feels as if you can get almost anything done. If you don't have trust embedded in the organization, even the most mundane tasks can seem to take forever and seem to fall short. So from my perspective, there are 6 expectations of a leader. The first expectation is to inspire trust. Once you've built trust, you then create direction, which is happening right now as you guys are organizing here to embark on a new strategy, a new direction with Opportunity International. And then the third step is to make sure the organization is aligned to go execute that strategy. That's also what you're doing today. You're creating this alignment process. The fourth thing is give them the energy to go fight the good fight because this is heavy lifting. You're also doing that today. And then the key is to be able to execute it with excellence. As you know from a distribution company, all the great intentions and all the alignment and all the trust building and all the motivation won't get you from here to there unless you're able to execute your plan. And so what we challenge leaders to think about is, do I have a plan that our organization has the ability to execute? Because a good plan well executed beats a brilliant plan poorly executed every time. Most organizations like a moth to a flame, get attracted to brilliant strategies that are very difficult to execute. We could talk about Obamacare here, but I won't. Well-intentioned, great stuff, and then my son tries to get insurance. So you have to be able to execute it, and then you have to deliver the results you're expected to deliver.
Right.
And so what I love about what's going on right here, right now, is you're really taking the first half of those expectations in terms of trust building, creating direction, aligning the organization, motivating the organization to really get in the right mindset to do the heavy lifting, positioning yourselves to execute well, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Well, we have an advantage, that opportunity that a lot of corporations sometimes don't have, which is a clear statement of purpose. And talk a little bit about how purpose plays a role in building trust.
There are several elements to building trust. The first two are more foundational, then I'll get to purpose. To build trust, you have to have two things, competence and character. I'll use an example. My wife was an actress back in the day, and I would stay home and cook for the children, which was comical, even though I was in the food business.
Well, you had soup cans. You could open those.
Not at the time.
Oh, okay.
They were too young. But they knew I was a pretty good guy and that I tried to be a good father, but they also knew I couldn't cook. So they did not trust me, okay? I had to actually know what I was doing in the kitchen and be a person who did what he said he was going to do. Competence and character, to me, are the two foundational areas of trust. The third thing is you then have to do what you say you're going to do. And this is where higher purpose comes in. When you start to declare this higher ambition for your enterprise, you attract people who are attracted to that ambition and who are fiercely dedicated to delivering on that potential. And it's differentiating in the world in which we live. I have found it's too easy to get sucked into the small, petty things of a corporate environment and lose sight of what matters most. Right. And higher purpose signals the entire organization every day, here's what matters most, and here's why we're here. And it is the difference between being in a position to execute to win or not. So I think it's differentiating. You clearly have people of good character here. You clearly have great competence, although that competence has to change as you evolve your model, so you have to make sure you have the right skill set. I'll help you with your people in your people committee later.
Did you hear that? He's on the committee. I just heard that.
No. I said I'd help.
He just signed up.
But no, so you have to work on competence here. But what I have found is that this shining light of higher purpose is differentiating. We also see it in companies. The other organization you and I founded, Center for Higher Ambition Leadership, based on a book by Mike Beers called Higher Ambition. I encourage people to read it. And the subtitle of that book is How Great Leaders Can Build Social and Economic Value. And it's written really for private, for-profit companies.
Right.
But it's the same notion that we're pursuing here at Opportunity International.
Absolutely right. Interestingly, the center also did some research recently where they compared companies in each sector. And in each sector, you would find companies at the top that outperformed the companies at the bottom by about 2.5 times. And they tried to figure out what was the secret sauce. Why do the ones at the top outperform the bottom? And what they found, surprisingly, is they thought it would be the normal things like they understood how you had to develop a high-performance culture, or they use continuous improvement techniques very well, et cetera. The things that we all know now are good management practices. And what they found is they were all doing that. And the secret sauce they found was, and it manifested itself in trust, but they were able to articulate and actually live out a purpose. Mm-hmm. They're able to articulate what is a noble cause. Why are we actually here? Why should you come to work and put in your time? Besides, you're going to earn a living, but why is that important? And they found companies that did that. What they did is unlock the heart. Mm-hmm. Corporations are not used to bringing the heart into the equation. It's the head and the hands, and the heart you're supposed to leave at home, right? But by bringing the heart, you unlock all kinds of energy, passion, and involvement, and that was the difference. That was the secret sauce between the high performers and the bottom performers. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is the impact it has, and then how you go about building that trust and keeping it over time.
No, that's absolutely right.
So talk a little bit about employee engagement, okay? You cite that in your book, and clearly that was a key component of the remarkable turnover you led at Campbell Soup. Talk about, why is that important, and how do you go about doing it?
The reality is that any business leaders in the room are leaders of families. 99 out of 100 decisions that are made by the family happen when you're not in the room, right? They happen when you're not in the room. You have to have complete confidence that the people that are making those decisions are fully engaged in the family or in the community in which you work, for-profit, not-for-profit, and have the best interests of the enterprise in mind. And employee engagement is a way of measuring that and measuring culture. And it is, to me, foundational. It connects beautifully with higher performing companies that actually have higher purpose. So what we found is that companies where there's high employee engagement grow roughly 2 times faster, have better safety records, and better track records of performance across multiple variables. And it doesn't cost anything. To build a high engagement culture, you need 4 things. There are 4 areas you got to look at, and it goes back to Maslow. The top is the spear, the triangle, is this notion of leave a legacy, and that's the higher purpose.
Right.
But then there are 3 other important building blocks here. At the base of the pyramid is this notion of you got to make a living and you got to have good physical conditions for functioning. And that's some of the work you're trying to provide the people that, that are benefiting from your program. Mm-hmm. But it's true also in your offices. People have to feel like they can make a living doing what they're doing, and they have to operate in an environment that feels safe and secure and where things work. The next level is people have to feel loved. They have to feel valued. They need to know that people are paying attention to what they do. The third level is they also have to have opportunities to learn and grow. So it's living, loving, learning, leaving a legacy of contribution. When you start paying attention to those 4 levels, whether you're in a for-profit or not-for-profit, in a determined, consistent way, you can lift engagement. You did it at United Stationers. I did it at Campbell. We know people that have done it across the landscape. It is a doable proposition. It's what Howard Schultz is doing with Starbucks, you know, and what Mark Bertolini is trying to do at Aetna. Mm-hmm. So this notion of building a high engagement organization that feels valued, and as they feel valued, they will value the agenda of the organization more. They will trust it more. Then they lean into the work a little bit more, and then the performance lifts. And it's a beautiful, virtuous cycle when you get it right. And when you're in the zone, and you were at United Stationers for a while, and I was at Campbell's, you see the power of people working together with head, heart, and hands, doing great work.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite exciting. And not only you find out that it is a better way to manage, but it's a lot more fun, right?
Oh, yeah. And if you think about it, you know, I do an exercise when I'm doing some of my teaching, and we have people visualize someone who had the most profound impact on them. And we'd say, think about a grandparent, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a mentor of some kind or other, and you try and visualize, well, how did that person treat you? How did that person treat you? Did they have high standards for you? Oh, yeah, you betcha. Did they care about you? Yeah. And you did your best work responding to them, and you held them in the highest regard. What I challenge people to do in their everyday lives at work and at home is to be more like that person with the people with whom they live and work. Mm-hmm. This leadership notion can sound difficult to get to. You have 6 expectations and all of this mumbo-jumbo, but we all know what great leadership looks like. We've experienced it with people firsthand. And what I encourage people to do is just be more like that with the people with whom you live and work. And you can profoundly change the dynamics of any situation. You know what it looks like. And so we try and create conditions in companies and in non-for-profit organizations. We're doing a lot of work with the federal government right now. And we're finding everywhere we can get traction with these ideas around higher ambitions, around employee engagement, around leadership, that make me surprisingly optimistic about our ability to take on the challenges in the 21st century. It's a new paradigm, for sure, but I have a lot of confidence.
So this all sounds good, but does it really work? So let's talk about Campbell Soup. When you walked into Campbell Soup, what did you find, and what was the key thing that you had to do to turn that engagement around?
We had a company that had been decimated by years of benign neglect and poor decision making, and we were trapped in what I would call the circle of doom, which we don't have time to get into. But we were overpromising and under-delivering, and then making bad decisions to try and deliver, and one bad decision led to 3 more. And that went on for several years. I got there, and we had lost half our market value in 1 year. Our employee engagement, we had Gallup, who is the leader in this field, come and do an employee engagement survey. And they said, Doug, this is the worst employee engagement we've ever seen in the Fortune 500.
Congratulations.
And I was thinking, well, they've probably done 10 or 20 companies, 300 companies of the 500. And we were also headquartered in the poorest, most dangerous city in the United States, Camden, New Jersey. 75,000 people, 70 murders a year, ferocious drug problem,
Did you
no
also have
infrastructure.
barricades around your office?
We had, the prior administration had built barbed wire fences around the property so the employees felt safe. But when I drove there, I felt like I was going to a minimum security prison.
Exactly.
So we ultimately tore the barbed wire down, and we changed the paradigm. But it was a difficult situation, and people were not engaged. So on day one, we declared this intention to value the employees in a way where they tangibly felt valued, and we trusted that they would value our agenda over time. And we were met with a lot of passive-aggressive and behavior for a couple of years. And we slogged through that. And
the latest CEO,
yeah, here you come,
jumbo,
yeah.
right.
And I'd never been a CEO before, so what does he know? And that was a good question. But we were very intentional, and I've been in this industry a long time, and I knew what we needed to do, so we systematically went about doing it. We did it in a way that honored people. And I think as a leader, I think Vicki, as the leader of Opportunity International, does a great job of this. You have to lead from in front on this. This is the Gandhi moment, where you have to be the change that you want to see in the world. You have to be the change incarnate. And you have to live this higher purpose notion. I tried to do that at Campbell for a decade, and by the time I was done, I had worn out the naysayers, and we
left, right?
Well, we helped some of them leave, yeah. But sadly, our top 350 leaders, by the 3rd year, we had turned over 300 of our top 350, which has never been done in a Fortune 500 company before. But they had 3 years to either get with the program and help lift it, and we tracked it, and they had their own employee engagement scores, and they had business performance objectives, and we actually had a leadership model that says, here's how we expect you to lead. And they had 3 years to do it, but by the end of year 3, we sort of had to make years 2 and 3, we had to make tough calls. Interestingly, when we let those people go over time, and we did it in a very caring, direct way, tracked every single person, until they found another job, went way overboard on the outplacement help, but it was important. As we did all that, I was worried I was going to blow up the company. In fact, employee engagement went up every year. And the more we let go of the leadership, the more it went up, because all those people working there knew that we had to do that. They knew it was time to have more enlightened, open leadership, less hierarchy, people that were really listening. And so it was a tough, the first 3 years, as you know, are always tough in a turnaround. Tough. And it was heavy lifting, but we got there, and ultimately we went from worst in the Fortune 500 to the best in the Fortune 500 over the decade. And our global leadership team that we turned over, the top 350, went from worst in the Fortune 500 to the best in the Fortune 500, and the key measure that they used at the time, they've changed it a little now, was something called an engagement ratio, and that was the number of people engaged in the work divided by the number of people who weren't engaged. We started at 2 to 1, so for every 2 people we had doing the work, we had 1 person looking for a job in those top 350. And when I retired, it was 77 to 1. I would have loved to known who those 4 people were that didn't get the message. But in a very intentional way, we systematically built this and committed our employees to this sense of higher purpose, trying to build the world's most extraordinary food company by nourishing people's lives everywhere, every day. And it was all about nourishing people's lives, and which is what our soups and many other products were there to do, with great value and improving health characteristics and everything else. And we were dedicated to doing that around the world. Our employees took that idea and ran with it, and the company had a great run.
Great story. So describe a little bit about, once you got engagement going and people were excited about working there, you were able to take down, one example of what you could then do was take down the barbed wire. What else would you say were the results?
Well, we kept raising the standards of performance. The first 3 years, it was we want to go from being totally uncompetitive to being competitive.
Yeah.
The next 3 years, we want to go from being competitive to being above average. All right. And for the next 3 years, years 6 through 9, we wanted to go from being above average to being extraordinary. You had to do that in pieces, in steps. And so we found that the organization, the higher the standards for performance were, the more they leaned into it, and the better we did. But the key differentiator was higher engagement, a greater sense of purpose, and then we kept raising the bar for ourselves, and it paid off. And our shareholders won. We contributed to the well-being of all the communities in which we worked, including Camden, and we had a great run.
Great, thank you for that story. So opportunity, you went through a lot of change at Campbell, obviously, as you described it, and opportunity is also going through a lot of change. Vicki talked this morning about our role and our progression over time, and I think, personally, I think we're set for some really explosive impact around the globe. Talk to us a little bit about how do you manage change? What advice would you give us?
Well, and I see Nikki. I see I've got 14
You got
seconds.
4 seconds
I got
to answer that question.
I think the first thing is a mindset, and the mindset has to be that we're going to be intrepid here. We are mission-driven. We got to get this done. So the mindset is first and foremost. And then the other thing is I've found we've got to be incredibly clear about expectations. In this case, clarity is next to godliness. Intentions are great, but what specifically are you looking for us to do? And so an intrepid mindset and clarity are probably the first 2 things that have to surface when you think about this.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Can everybody give Doug a big round of applause for coming up here?